Welcome back to Close Encounters of the Tech Kind. We're going to have a fantastic conversation this week. I'm John. We're going to get into the AI bubble and how it's popping. We got some proof this time. Not just anecdotal proof, but actual town councils. It's awesome. ID verification versus ID theft. Where's the line and how do we protect ourselves? France, they're moving to Linux. Enough of this Windows crap. Amazon, they're buying up some low Earth orbit space. What could possibly go wrong? And then for all of us who are really interested, we're watching Microsoft change the limits on FAT32. Stay tuned. If you don't know what that means, you'll learn a little bit how hard drives work. With us this week, we've got Mike.
Hey, everybody.
And then Jackson.
How's it going?
And to top it off, we've still got Artie running the show behind the scenes.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for you to untie me from this chair.
All right. When we hit 1,000 subscribers, we'll do that.
He gets promoted to...
Please like and subscribe. Artie needs a break.
I haven't seen the sun in 5 months.
Who let him out 5 months ago? We got to know this. Anyway. I'm on a bad connection, so if I glitch out, guys, just carry on without me. I will join back in a couple seconds. But without further ado, the AI bubble is popping. Jackson, you saw a town council. They approved something, and then what happened?
This was pretty funny. This was in Missouri. The town outed half of the city council after they approved a $6 billion AI data center. So the city council voted 6-2 to approve the deployment. And then whenever they were up for re-election, which I think was pretty almost immediately after, 4 of the incumbents who were up for re-election were outed.
You know, I think I said it about a year ago. AI is going to be one of those hot button issues that if your politician supports it, they're not going to be your politician for long.
Yeah, you did.
And it specifically says that that's why they were outed.
This article doesn't necessarily say that's specifically why, but it wouldn't surprise me. We've been seeing this similar attitude and behavior from city residents that are near these data centers for quite some time. So it wouldn't surprise me if that is why those incumbents were voted out.
Nothing motivates a group of people like a data center that screams at high frequencies and low frequencies 24 hours a day.
And increases your
and messes up
bill.
your utility bill.
Yep. Electricity and water.
It's loud, it's noisy, my life costs more. What could be? Other than that, it's great, right?
It's like someone comes to your house and on your sound system, like the equalizer, they just turn up the lowest frequency and the highest one, and then they charge you like a monthly payment to stay there.
Also, the promise that it's going to bring jobs. The jobs that it brings, they bring in people from the outside to manage it. They don't hire from local. Even the construction. I was seeing some people talking about the construction of these places, and they will bring in a firm from another state or another country in some cases to do the work because it's cheaper and they know how to do it quicker. So why hire local?
Well, I mean, if you're a superintendent for building out one of these buildings, that's what you would do. You would bring people that could get the job done faster, more accurate, and cheaper.
This is a bit anecdotal, but thinking about these data centers and the impact they're having on the economy and jobs. Me being in college, I'm I'm around a lot of the people who are doing Capstone right now, and I know one of the teams was actually hired by someone involved with data centers. I don't know if it's an architect or whoever, but their goal was to make a better ventilation system. And so they spent a whole semester designing this ventilation system. And then what one of the teammates told me is that basically the company came to them and said, hey, we like your design, but we found a company in China. They basically did the same thing. We're just going to buy from them. And like, thanks, but no thanks. So like, I mean, they're just outsourcing to not even local, not even United States, but foreign nations, namely China.
I would love to see the town councils or whoever's doing the approvals. I would love to see them put in rules saying you have to hire 50% locals.
Well, and then you go to, I mean, I don't know, what are the common positions that you would see at a data center? I mean, at least for your technical staff, I mean, I don't know,
Doesn't
are you
matter.
going to be limiting your hiring pool?
Well, I mean, there's education and training for the 2 years of building the thing. I mean, put people on a path. I mean, jobs are being supplanted or replaced by AI. At least that's the fears. You know, and that was one of those ones. Like, I remember there was I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on this, but a pipeline that was shut down, and the answer was they can go learn to code. Well, Claude's doing that for us quite nicely nowadays.
Well, I got to think about like Amazon warehouses. You know, I'm sure that there's tons of jobs when those were first built, but now Amazon moving to more automation, you know, and I got to think that data centers, I mean, how hard is it to automate a data center when all you're working with is data, you know?
Well,
it's got to be pretty easy. And the only thing I can think of that's going to get hired is security. You know, keep the place secure at night.
No, there's more than that. Hard drives fail, processors fail.
Yeah, and you got a couple maintenance crews, but it's not like you're going to have like this huge boom of creative thinking, intelligent, you know, master's degree, doctorate degree, you know, people that are working at this place. The average salary is not going to be what you think it's going to be.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's if you had a data center with 100,000 nodes in it, servers doing things, right? And Mike, if that was your job, and I said, okay, guess what? Now it's 200,000. Would your job change at all?
So, sorry, what's the question exactly again?
So if you were in charge of a data center, you had 100,000 nodes.
Okay.
And I told you, hey, guess what? We're opening up a second one. You're going to be in charge of 200,000 nodes. How much different would your job be?
I can't think that my job changes really all that much as long as the procedures and processes I can't see are going to change. It's just more of it. I mean,
instead of affecting 100,000 nodes with a click, the automation goes through and does double that.
Right. I mean,
10 times that or 100 times.
Exactly. That's the thing is I don't see that, you know, scaling up doesn't really add a whole lot of overhead in my eyes.
I remember a video, one of the Facebook engineers that was really at the beginning of the Facebook revolution. They custom built their hardware. They would rack that, like he touched all the servers and they would rack that up. And then they kept scaling up. And soon they had the vendors wiring up the servers to their spec and they would install them in the racks. And then very soon after that, they started shipping out entire racks pre-assembled by the vendors. And his job was to make sure That rack goes there. That rack goes there. These 30 servers go stacked in the corner. And he would architect out where the building layout is instead of down to the components inside a server case, which I think is the right progression. But he said it was just different because your processes change when you go from deploying 10 servers to 10 racks of servers. Once you get to that scale, it's one management tool that says, hey, instead of 50 computers, it's 5,000 computers. You're telling them to do the same thing. So I think you're right. The jobs aren't what are being promised. And that's I think, what everybody's waking up to right now. I think if we put into the deployment, you have to hire local. You have to support, better electricity usage, better water usage, have a recycling system on the water instead of just letting it evaporate. I think there's some real innovation that could come, but we're not holding them accountable to build that innovation for us.
Mm-hmm. They're not even taxing most of them because they think it's going to be a boon for their city.
Yeah.
Yeah, big mistake. All they're doing is just sucking the money out of anybody who's around it and anybody that uses it. They're on that
money and resources.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of innovation to be done as far as the energy efficiency side of things, like you were saying, John. Like, how are we going to be recycling the water? All this heat that we're generating. Why don't we use it for something? Why don't we figure something out to not just be a waste of energy?
So just got to ask a question. The same companies that are building these had pledges on how they were going to help the world get better. Like I'm not getting to the argument, but global warming, and we're building data centers that create lots of heat.
Well,
using resource that we need to keep, for people, they're going to use that resource, electricity. They're going to use that to generate electricity. Anyway.
It goes further than that, though. I mean, Google, we talked about it, I want to say last week. Google has made a deal with a natural gas company to power one of its data centers. And Google itself pledged to be, carbon neutral or whatever by 2030. And they're like doubling back on that, partnering with these natural gas companies that they're just going to be burning oil and just burning it. They're right into the atmosphere.
It's an interesting time. So yeah, stay involved, everybody. But the other one to get involved with, I don't know if you can hear me. You guys froze for a second. Is my connection still there?
Good. Keep going. What is it?
ID verification. We talked about this for a little bit. I had a thought. We're supposed to submit our IDs to these online systems that are going to verify that me, John, can use Discord as an adult. Well, all those interactions, it's going down to hundreds of data and identity, like broker kind of situations. One of those gets hacked. They have everything that I submitted to prove that I'm a person. So they could submit me in an identity theft scenario and submit everything necessary to be me somewhere else. I see a problem.
From the beginning, that's been one of my biggest concerns with all of this submission of stuff is if you go online and it's relatively simple, though highly unethical, to impersonate somebody. Now, if you're going to a higher level of that for the ID theft, this is creating a centralized location where all that information is going to be stored. And
and all the necessary pieces to prove who you are is stored.
Yes.
It's not just that John or Artie was there. It's you know, the driver's license, the thumbprint, the retinal scan, whatever it is. That's all there.
Bring up retinal scan. Small segue on that. Mexico is going to be requiring retinal scans for telephones. And
for what? For telephones?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, for having a smartphone. If you want to connect to their network, you're going to have your ID linked to your phone.
Like, are you talking like you go to a government facility and you want to get on their Wi-Fi?
I didn't dig into it very far. I just know that the proposed law is to basically have, if you want to use a phone on the national networks that are in Mexico, you're going to have to verify who you are via retinal scan.
I'm gonna wear those goofy, those really goofy contacts you can get with the like. Have you guys seen Masterminds? Have you seen that movie? It's got a bunch of the SNL cast in it. Oh man, it's so funny. It's actually based off a true story, obviously adapted and whatnot. But I can't. I'm forgetting the name of the actor. He's the guy who does the Between Two Ferns. Who am I thinking of?
Galifianakis?
Yes, he's in it if I remember correctly. And there's a scene where he's gotta go hide away, and he gets a disguise, and part of it were like these cat eye contacts. That's some of the goofiest things I've ever seen. But anyway, that just reminded me of that. So that's my
check that.
Getting around that.
Well, it's not that you get around it. It's the law that's being proposed is you have to use your phone as your connection point to money, to driver's license, to everything. You can't transact anything in the country unless your phone is your transaction point.
That's just so controlling.
Well, lots of other countries are doing it.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it ethical or right.
Yeah, it's getting that way in America right now, where you can't use cash to transact some things. You have to use digital forms of currency. So, I don't know. It's a good idea, bad idea. It's the wave that we're going, but I think we got to put some serious consequence to mishandling of our identity. And we really got to put some thought towards. I saw some researcher talking about you need a system on the phone that when you're verifying a purchase, check this. If you put your thumb on your phone to scan your thumbprint, you, Jackson, put pressure a certain way in a certain place. I can't mimic that. I could probably get there. But if the biometrics and the geolocation don't match your physical presence, then the transaction's denied. So if you don't put your thumbprint in the right way, the right angle, the right pressure, it raises concern. If you're in Kentucky instead of at college, okay, it's probably not Jackson trying to do this transaction. So then it blocks the transaction. I'd like to see something like that.
So kind of similar to
until we put a count. Go ahead.
If you're traveling and you neglect to let your bank know that you're going to be in Europe and you start using your card in Switzerland to buy stuff, your card might get flagged for fraudulent access, something like that.
That's how it used to be. When I travel, I would have to say, hey, I'm going to Las Vegas. Don't block my card, please. Now I've got access to the whole country, and if I spent it, great. If somebody else stole my card, that's my problem too. But I don't know. What do you think, Jackson? ID theft.
I don't know. I think it's becoming ever more of a problem when governments are requiring IDs for more and more things. And not even that it's necessarily malicious people that are stealing IDs, but I mean, even people who just want to access the internet are going to be finding ways around these systems or making fake IDs. I mean, there's that story of Australia, right? Did a survey. Australia put out a social media ban for kids under age 16. And then
How's
they put
that
out
going?
yeah, not well for them. They put out a survey, and from one of the studies that they did, they found that 61% of Australian 12 to 15-year-olds who had accounts before the law was enacted still have access and are still using those accounts since then. And I mean, and so what they were doing in Australia is, okay, well, you have to do a facial recognition thing, or I shouldn't say recognition, like a facial like age identification, or there was using your location and all these things. You submit an ID, and the kids were like doing all sorts of crazy stuff to get around it. I mean, they were making weird faces, or they were even applying makeup to make themselves look older. Or sometimes they go to a family member and say, hey, can you use your ID on my account? And then sure enough, they get in. So I mean, it's kind of that same concept that we've talked about a lot, especially when we talk about the whole ID verification to protect kids. You'll never be able to lock it down. You just can't. It's not the way the internet was built, and it's not the way that technology works. Technology in and of itself is designed to be used in so many different ways, and there's so many unique ways to do the same thing. And so what that means is then you get to the internet and the way that it was designed when it was first launched. It was designed to connect people and designed to be fluid, and you can do anything anywhere. And it still is that way if you know your way around. And really what we're doing is we're just breeding the next generation to be the most competent hackers that we have. Hopefully they decide to be good with their newfound skills, but I think that's where we're going.
Give out white hats, not black.
Yes.
Need to teach ethics or something.
I don't know if they still teach that in school.
It'd be good. Wish they would. But I think I just figured out part of my problem. I'm on battery. I'm going to plug in power. Let's watch me glitch out. So France is moving to Linux. Yay. I think part of that reason is all these not thought through changes that are happening to the core systems of the world through a few large companies. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. From the article that I read, it's looking like they're at least going about it in the spirit of, we want to be using European technology or European companies here in Europe, which I think is understandable from the U.S. government standpoint, because that's kind of been our standpoint for the last few years, is we want to use U.S. based things and stop outsourcing. So that's where Europe is publicly stating that's what they're attempting to do. But I think it wouldn't be much of a stretch to say it isn't also fueled by these constant issues we're seeing with large companies just kind of screwing up, and Microsoft is certainly at the forefront.
So with that, I know a few years ago I came across a something talking about how it was after one of the big private everything is secure end-to-end messaging apps got compromised. I don't know if it was Signal or Telegram, but one of them got breached, and France's response was, okay, we're developing our own for this. And they've got it.
Was not Signal.
No, but they created their own. I'm not going to name what it was, but it's end-to-end encryption that is, like NSA grade. Takes a lot to get through it. if you want to decrypt it. But
did you hear law enforcement now has a way to get around Signal?
Oh, really? How do they do that?
Just to hijack this one and go down a rabbit hole real quick. Every transaction on an iPhone is logged. Every message in, every data out is logged. So those disappearing messages in Signal, you can send it, you can receive it, you can look at it and delete it, but it's logged in the system. So they're now looking at the logs to pull out all of your secret messages. Kind of cool.
Kind of scary.
Yeah.
But I brought that up because France in particular has been trying to make everything more centralized within their country, have all the technology that they're working with program-wise and even some manufacturing-wise made there, because I mean we're looking at the last couple years. Trade is not always going to be the most effective way to get some things done.
Well, I like the fact that there's a diversity of options. You know, it's not just one locality. It's not one thing. I mean, you know, for better or worse, Twitter and several of the other companies in San Francisco had a single group of people to pull from, and they were all in one geography. They all had one mindset. They were all subject to the same laws, the same states, same municipalities. And so they all had an ideology they brought to it. Having a diverse product offering to come from, you know, if it's France, great. If it's, you know, American made, that's great too. But it shouldn't be subject to the laws of a local municipality that forces everybody to drive on the right-hand side of the road. That shouldn't be the common denominator on all products on the internet. I'm not stuttering, it's my connection. Actually, I'm stuttering.
Kind of like the Online Safety Act in the UK. They're trying to enforce those rules on entities that have absolutely no relation to the UK.
Pretty much.
I mean,
like go ahead.
My hope with this this story about, you know, France moving from Windows to Linux, and there's evidence of several other European countries kind of following suit, not necessarily with Windows, but even things like just the Microsoft Office suite or Google Suite. They're moving away from it for these open source things like LibreOffice or OpenOffice or Open something, I forget what it's called. But my hope is that as we see governments kind of making this a norm where, okay, now we're using Linux, I feel like most people who are into technology and know enough to be dangerous would prefer to use Linux on a day-to-day basis if they can. But the issue is it still lags behind Windows as far as support from other companies. You know, if you're a developer, you want to develop your product for the widest and largest audience. So if we start seeing Linux making up a larger portion of the global audience, my hope is that we see a lot more tech companies developing software for Linux, so that we can finally really have a choice into what we want to use.
My worry about that, though, is that you start to make that target bigger, that now we're going to start targeting that more for vulnerabilities.
It's true.
You know,
we're watching a lot of supply chain hacks come in right now, where they'll get a dependency or they'll sneak in a single line of code into some call out from some install script. And yeah, I think we need more watchdogs on that. We got to have people monitoring all these things.
Yeah, and the thing about France, though, as a government moving to this, I would think that they're going to be putting in some kind of policy or procedure in place that says, okay, we're moving to Linux, but it's not like a free-for-all anything Linux. Like, we're going to choose a specific distribution, a select set of packages of software that they can evaluate, vet them, make sure that, you know, does it check all the boxes for security and everything, and maybe
does
even
does Linux crash your computer in a predictable way, or does it just like die?
Well, and even to assign like maybe even their own team to say you're going to contribute to this project to provide security and make sure that the supply chain is kept intact, and we're not going to get vulnerabilities from mystery people on the opposite side of the world, you know, kind of thing. So, I mean, there's going to still be and maybe they'll pay for that, you know, and otherwise they'll, you know, contribute or review and evaluate and analyze. But that's the nice thing about open source is that they'll have the open ability to do that. Whereas Microsoft, being a closed source, it's like, yeah, you're providing us this product and we just have to take your word for it that it's secure. But we have no way of actually evaluating it because it's all proprietary to you and you don't release your source code. So,
well, it's secure until the 0 days are published.
Right.
Every Patch Tuesday.
Yeah, so I think Mike, you brought up a great point though. I think a very big reason that we see so many vulnerabilities in these larger software distributions or operating system distributions is because they are the number one used operating system. So if you are a hacker, I mean, that's where you're trying to get in at. You want to be able to use your exploit on the largest number of systems. So if we see Linux coming up there, then yeah, I mean, it might generate a larger attack surface and put a bigger target on its back. But with that, I also think what you're saying is very important. Like, at least we have the ability to go in and see actually what's going on. How can we fix it? How can we prevent this in the future?
And I'd like to think that there are far more of us good guys watching out than there are bad guys. And as long as that remains the case, then I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. And
I think you just summarized the AI race right now, where we need good guys building AI systems ahead of the bad guys building their AI systems. Because I don't know if you've seen it. Anthropic just dropped their Mythos version of Claude. This wasn't in our headlines, but I want to talk this one real fast. You guys heard of any of this?
Is this someone that they were claiming would be the bug catcher or the vulnerability?
It's so overpowered that it's finding 0 days that have existed for years, in some cases a couple decades, that nobody knew about. And it's doing it fast, and it's writing exploits that can get through that. It's hacking way better and more powerful than others. Now, we're having to take their word for it, right? And the other downside, you know, just to push out the other side of the story, they're giving the raw binaries to Anthropic. They're not giving the finished executables. So it's able to go through the source code real time. It's not pulling the machine code and reverse engineering that. So the baseline that they're offering is not a true baseline. And I'd almost say Anthropic is pushing an IPO soon. What a fantastic way to put out into the world that we've got the best product, to say we just built the ultimate hacking tool and none of you will have access except for the banks and a couple others we've invited to the team. And that's all we're going to give you, right? We have smoke and mirrors. We have no proof.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because
I
I was gonna say I think that's where it was left off was Anthropic made all these claims about Mythos being able to do these things, but we don't really know exactly what that means.
And it's called Mythos. How appropriate.
Right?
I thought you were going to say it's so overpowered that it was actually finding like -1 days or something, vulnerabilities that have yet to be created. It's that good.
It's making the vulnerabilities into the code and then going back and fixing them.
Job security.
It very well could. Look at the image generation that OpenAI was doing at the beginning. You guys remember when we were playing with it at the beginning? There was a lawn chair running through the ocean at one point. I tried to recreate that. The new generator can't do what the early ones screwed up and made.
I loved its random sense of hallucination and imagery.
But it can't go back and recreate that now. If you get a detailed prompt, it will not be. I tried. I spent 2 hours one night because I got bored trying to recreate that with the new version of DALL-E. It would not create it.
It's because now people have been pushing it so hard to be real and to get the details right that
it can't do it wrong.
It can't do it wrong. Yeah. Even if you deliberately ask it to, yeah.
Look, all I want is a generated image of members of the Addams family, and it can't get the fingers right. She's got 6 fingers on one hand and 7 on the other. Why can't it get it right?
Huh.
Well, and there's a trick out there. Those deepfake engines that you can put on your phone to, grow a beard or remove the beard or change genders and put makeup on. There's something that right now they can't get through it. Guys, put 3 fingers up and put it in front of your face.
Yeah, we talked about this last week.
After the show we did.
Yeah.
So by doing that, all the deepfake engines can't render your face through that. It glitches out. So for the next couple weeks, you've got a tool to see if you're being deepfaked.
Yeah, there was a really interesting I forget the name of the YouTuber, but he made an appearance. I think it was on Webroot. They had like a demonstration, and he showed that he was being deepfaked by somebody. And it was pretty. Once you know what you're looking for, it's very obvious, what's going on. But the guy would refuse to look away from the camera because as soon as you look away, the model freaks out, and all these things. And then he eventually tells him, "Yeah, well, put 3 fingers up in front of your face." And he refused to do it and left the call. Showing that he's like, "Oh, that's too much to ask,"
There was another one that I saw. So North Korea is turning into a serious challenge for HR departments to catch on the inbound take. So you're hiring somebody to do remote work, a very talented engineer, great. I saw the greatest one. They asked somebody to say something extremely disparaging of Kim Jong-un. And the guy wouldn't say it. So there's ways. And that's kind of where I'm at is we've got all these AI tools to fake the system, to do it better, to, submit your ID and all that. Nothing beats human creativity and ingenuity. You put your mind to it, you can accomplish the thing. Let's put it this way. In prison, prisoners are able to get contraband in all sorts of creative ways. Even the people that are the most watched and restricted are able to do what they want in a secure space where they shouldn't be able to have access to the tools they've got.
That's a pretty interesting point. I think you nail that on the head right there. Even in prisons, they're doing things that they're not allowed to.
What is it? Nothing's foolproof to a sufficiently talented fool.
Never underestimate the ingenuity of stupidity.
Before, but Yeah, it reminds me of my programming. Like, I can put in all the error trapping and user like protections as I can think of, and I just need to give the program to somebody who knows absolutely nothing about computers, and just let them just here use this, and watch all the ways that they try to use the program in ways that I never thought were even like, why would that even cross your mind to do that, and watch it just all break. And
why'd you hit the escape button? You're not supposed to hit escape.
It kind of reminds me of the people that they develop a game and they've got like all the values are in there, all of them are set up properly, and then you give it to somebody that professionally breaks games. Not somebody that looks for bugs, someone that looks for loopholes. And they find this, oh, well, if you accidentally pause it right here and mess with these little tiny things that nobody in their right mind would do, it breaks it, and this 2x modifier continuously grows.
Yeah,
it's like those Portal 2 speed runs where you glitch out and right on top of the map.
No, yeah, I've experienced the same thing where I've made, fun little text-based adventure games before in C or in Python or whatever. I'm always proud of it, and I go give it to somebody to go try who, doesn't know anything about programming, and it doesn't take like 2 minutes, and they're like, I don't know what it's doing, and I'm like, what? And I look over, I'm like, how did you what did you do? Like,
you fell off the edge of the earth. What the?
I mean, it's like there's only so much you could have possibly have done, and I have no idea how you got here.
That's awesome. What else we got?
So let's jump to our last one, and we'll do the second to last. Microsoft is removing the size limit for FAT32. Jackson, I wanted to hear this live, unfiltered, raw, so we actually emote to this brand new fundamental change Microsoft is pushing.
All right. Let me see what I can give you. Basically, that's the headline: is Microsoft is removing the 32 gigabyte size limit for FAT32 volumes, and this time they're just fully getting rid of it. So this is out in a preview build that will allow people to format things up to 2 terabytes. And I think there was even some people were able to get it to have the allocation unit size to be 4,000 bytes, which would allow up to 16 terabytes.
So my question is, why are they arbitrarily keeping it low? If they had the capacity, the understanding to do this, why was it purposefully kept at, 32 gigs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why have we been stuck here for so long?
Because that's the 32-bit limit, right? So we ran into this with logical block addressing, the LBA. We had 32-bit LBA, now it's 48-bit. It was when a hard drive was made, they said 2 terabytes. Nobody will have a hard drive that big. It'll be decades till we have this problem. And then boom, it happened fast. So they had to change the way hard drives were addressed. This goes back to like before SATA. There was IDE, before it was EIDE, enhanced IDE, which allowed larger than, oh gosh, Mike, stretching my memory here.
Megabytes.
Remember, IDE was limited like
this is back in the days when your hard drive was just megabytes big.
Yeah.
Remember when you had to put on all your cylinders and heads and
I do
your drive parameters into the control, the BIOS and everything, so
set the right jumpers and go to the firmware on the machine in low level format.
Right.
That was computing. That was like you earned the right to install the operating system at that point. So it's got to be backwards compatible, otherwise it doesn't work. The LBA addressing, there was disk overlay tools you could install that would imitate the 32-bit address, but allow you to have a hard drive that went past that 2 terabyte limit. I would imagine they found a way to make FAT32 just have an address translation inside it, so it can do groups of more than that. Now, I haven't read anything on this, but it's got to have that old limit because it is still a 32-bit address. Interesting idea, though.
I'm wondering if, though, that they have found a way to. Yeah, I mean, I guess exactly what you're saying. They found a way to expand that. Which, I mean, this has existed for a long time. There have been third-party tools that have been able to do that, but now finally Windows is allowing you to do it natively. But they're not even doing it within the actual GUI. They're still forcing you to do it through the command line. So as long as you're okay doing it through the command line, you can do it.
Well, and the interesting piece is Windows isn't where FAT32 is used. Windows does NTFS. FAT32 is used by Mac, by Linux, by video cameras, IoT devices, your doorbell. Yeah, all those things are running FAT32. So this has to be compatible.
For like a general purpose file interchange between multiple platforms. FAT32 or exFAT is another one that I see used. That's one thing that's always frustrated me, is that, different platforms, but everybody's got their file system, like NTFS for Windows. Was it ext4, 3 or 4 for Linux, 2, 3 or 4 for Linux. And then you've got, if you got older systems, you even had just FAT16 or some of the. I hate it when it comes up and actually says MS-DOS, for the file system. Apple was using, HFS Plus, HFS and HFS Plus, which is a different one. And then you've got other ones that are more for like mass storage, for data center type stuff, things like that. ZFS and some others, just network file system, network file storage.
Well, and that's
never been able to agree on just one universal, consistent. Here's how I exchange my data. When I plug in a thumb drive, it's like, ooh, 2 out of 3 computers can read the thumb drive because the one computer doesn't read that particular file system.
And that's where I'm at is, what problem are we fixing? There's 100 different styles out there. We're fixing one that has been a standard for decades, and now the compatibility is broken. Because I guarantee you, like an Arduino from the beginning won't be able to understand the new FAT32 form factor 100%. There'll be something wrong.
Well, and from what I'm reading, just really quickly, is that we get FAT32. 32, you mentioned earlier, refers to the 32-bit address space for sectors. But then it comes down to what is the size of a sector. We could have anything from, a couple bytes, really, all the way up to maybe a megabyte or more, and multiplying that across the 32-bit, whatever the 32-bit number is the capacity of the drive at that point. And theoretically, what I'm reading here, it says in theory, we can go up to 16 terabytes if we have the right mix of variables, right? But, it's interesting. changing the sector size versus changing the address space. Because on everything else computing, we've gone from 32-bit addressing systems and being able to handle 32-bit numbers, and we moved into the 64-bit space, and now everything's been 64-bit for a number of years now. I don't think we can, unless you special order it, you can't buy a computer that is only a 32-bit computer, right?
Well, we're actually still running LBA 48.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's what I'm getting at, is that, we have memory does something, CPUs do something, and then storage has to catch up. Because with the 64-bit, all of our compiled programs are now 64-bit compiled, which means they actually take up a little bit more space, because we're talking about 64-bit instructions and so on, right? Mm-hmm. And potentially a lot more memory being moved back and forth, So it's just interesting how storage, long-term storage, seems to lag behind just a little bit.
And it's all got to be compatible. So that's I guess what I'm saying is we still have LBA 48 as the base for hard drives. Jackson, do you know what sectors, heads, and cylinders are?
Say that again. Sectors, heads, and cylinders?
Yeah.
Sounds like you're talking about an engine.
So back in the day, you'd have a hard drive. You would have to type in the specific geometry of the system. How many heads, how many cylinders, and how many sectors. And you're really defining where in that system everything is scattered around.
Mm-hmm.
All our hard drives are still based on this technology from the beginning.
The spinning
How does that make you feel? Well, and even solid state has to mimic those geometry pieces, because if it doesn't give you sectors, heads, and cylinders, then your IDE controller doesn't know what to do with it.
Well,
it's all compatible.
Yeah.
That's where NVMe came in. It changed the rules.
Right.
And that's what we take for granted, is that our technology for these hard drive controllers has taken the burden of that to just automatically figure that out and know that and report that to the system when it has to. And it kind of gets back to our earlier discussion about the data centers and the jobs and everything, the progress of technology, automating. If we were talking about a data center 60 years ago, let's say 60 years ago, if we were going to build something called a data center, it would require people with master's degrees and PhDs and so on and so forth to do the day-to-day operation of that, because the automation for a computer just handled on its own isn't there. So a hard drive or a storage device goes down, it's a highly technical process to take that out, replace it, and get it up and running and interface with the system 60 years ago. Versus now, we have RAID systems with hot swappable hard drives. You pop it out, you pop it in, and click a button maybe to spin it up and do the recovery. That does not take master's or PhD training. That takes maybe a certificate at a junior college or something, if that.
Read a manual.
Read the manual. Yeah, here's your 2 days of training, and then we're going to turn you loose,
Yeah, I mean, we're going back to when computers were measured in rooms, like 1940s to 1960s. I'm just looking this up now. The single room computer was, about 1,000 square feet. You get more, and anyway, it was just a rough number that they would put to things. But these rooms were purpose-built, environmentally controlled, kind of like our data centers now. But they were making it up as they go because they didn't know what they were doing. Some cool history there, especially when you're dealing with tapes.
My favorite thing there is comparing that with our current endeavors into quantum computing. And I've had people that are even working on these projects, and they have said, I kid you not, like deadpan face, quantum computers will never be a thing that will be in the common consumer hand. It's really only for like doing specific calculations and math. And I'm like, I literally laughed at him in his face. I was like, that's what they said about the computer. Like, it will eventually make its way into common.
Yeah, 75 years ago, a computer was a thing that existed at a large institution or a military base and was only run by top level scientists. Nobody would ever have a computer in their home. Well, fast forward to the 1970s and the 80s.
The CEO of IBM said there's enough of a market for our computers that we might sell 5 worldwide. Which, he's not CEO anymore. Not because of age, but that was the wrong direction to take the company.
Right.
Well, speaking of taking companies in directions, I want to jump to this last one before we got to wrap up. We've got a new game up in the stratosphere or higher places. Amazon is taking over a new band of altitudes. Tell us more.
Well, Amazon has purchased Globalstar for $11.6 billion with a B, as they're expanding their low Earth orbit satellite network. I've been practicing my enunciation. No, but I mean, obviously they're doing this to start competing with SpaceX and Starlink. And they are getting into that market, and we are seeing Space Wars. Who's excited?
This is not what Ronald Reagan was thinking of in the 80s when he proposed the Star Wars program. We all thought it was going to be us and them, the United States against some other country that, we're going to be shooting lasers and stuff at each other. And no, why should we be surprised that it ends up being 2 corporations?
Well, the good news is there's regulatory bodies that they respond to. So FCC and I think NORAD actually has a piece of this.
I would think
SpaceX is licensed an altitude, I want to say 300 to 400 kilometers. Before this acquisition, Blue Origin had got 500 to 600 kilometers. So their satellites are further out, which gives them a couple advantages where they need fewer satellites to give full coverage to the planet, but they also have a longer latency. So if you have double the length of time to get from up and down between Starlink and Blue Origin, the latency is higher. Your gaming's not going to work as good. Internet's going to be a little less snappy.
Or you could then also scale up, but I think that would be kind of exponential, wouldn't it? To increase the number of satellites to try to reduce that latency, maybe.
Well, it's pure physics at that point.
But yeah, it's physics at that point. It's the distance between here and there is really what it is.
What Amazon's pushing is the bandwidth. So you get like 1 gigabit, 2 gigabit, 10 gigabit, whatever speeds they're pushing. They're trying to, instead of give solid coverage like SpaceX has, they're trying to give high speed bandwidth. We'll see. I'm interested in getting one for my car because I've already got Starlink in my car.
Well, I'll give a take on this. I don't know if either of you considered, or any of our viewers, but a lot of this, like the satellite population has been growing exponentially. And especially in low Earth orbit. I mean, I've actually done a research paper on this. It's currently very unregulated in the sense that we have a lot of junk flying around in our low Earth orbit. And I haven't really kept up with it in the last couple of years. But from last I was aware, essentially the FCC was like, they have some very loose restrictions on like, okay, if you send up a satellite, you have to have some sort of a plan for end of life. But that plan could be, oh yeah, just push it further out in orbit, or let it burn up in the atmosphere, or leave it. Like, I mean, so we're literally allowing these huge companies like Amazon and SpaceX to just fill our atmosphere with satellites. Or I guess I should say atmosphere, our orbit with satellites. And then the other issue is if they're not well taken care of, especially at an end of life, they become, hurtling projectiles. And, we do all rely on satellites all the time. You name it, GPS and now internet, right? And as soon as you get one that, has a malfunction or collides with another satellite or whatever it may be, I mean, that thing shatters because these things are moving at like several kilometers a second. I mean, these things are flying up there. So anyway,
this is where I like SpaceX's approach to their satellites. When it's time for them to be done, they do a final burn. They fall into the atmosphere, and they're designed to burn up 100% on reentry.
Right. And that's what I hope to see more of. And then there's the other points of like, okay, well, if we're burning all that up in the atmosphere, what are we doing to the ozone, whatever. So there's other concerns there. I feel like I do prefer that to then just letting it fly up there, because the issue is as soon as you get an object up there that is no longer pilotable, it just becomes a hazard for any other existing satellites, because there is no way to control it. There's currently really no way to retrieve it. Just because.
Well, we just figured out how to dispose of lithium batteries. Take all your used lithium batteries, put them in orbit, and watch them fall down and burn up in the atmosphere.
Right. We have inadvertently come up with another solution to a different problem.
Just go to spin launch. You can launch it up there pretty quick.
Launch into deep space. I don't know.
Just throw all our garbage into the sun. How about that?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see who's going to end up with the better product, Amazon or SpaceX.
And I love that. We're bringing competition to the market. It's not a single monopoly that's going to control all satellite internet. Competition's a good thing because it sparks and forces innovation to draw customers away from the other guy. That's what we need. There's got to be a competitive edge to things, and you've got to have the better product. Always innovate, always make it better. Just like this podcast. We're always going to innovate. We're always going to try and make it better. Thanks for joining us on this conversation. Going to have to wrap it up, guys. We're about that time. But until next time, I'm John.
I'm Mike.
I'm Jackson.
And I need a duck. Quack, quack.
Not a duck. Look out for that low bridge. Ooh, I stumped him.